And would you please join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd just like to announce that our normal chairman, Supervisor Walensky, is on a trip representing the county back at a conference in Montana, I think, and so I'll be chairing the meeting today. We have kind of an urgent need to get out of here at 11:30, so I'm going to run the gavel pretty rapidly here. So reminding people about our giving you an admonition about time spent at the podium. Okay, the first thing on the agenda this morning is, as always, the consent calendar, and these consent items are on the agenda, and they're expected to be routine and non-controversial. They'll be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion, except that any board member, staff member, or interested party can request the removal of an item, and we will discuss it at sufficient length. So, anyway, do I hear anybody from the board wishing to remove an item? Staff? Anybody from the audience? If not,
I'll move the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, the consent agenda has been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So the consent calendar is approved on a 4-0 and 1 absent. We have to wait. Our usual protocol is to wait for the public comments until 9:10. So visit amongst yourselves.
Okay.
Call the meeting back to order, and at this time we are at the public comments. And I just want to remind you that public comments should be limited to 5 minutes per person, 15 minutes per topic. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the board. As you know, I stood here before you a couple of times, very angry, very frustrated, and I had the feeling that the representatives of this county are unwilling to stand up for their citizens. Today I'm standing here and I have to admit you proved me absolutely wrong. I'm standing here to thank you for my family and for the whole neighborhood for keeping your promise to fix Gillam Road. It was a long, painful, and expensive battle, but you never gave up on us. I would like to especially thank Vernis Hedix from the Public Work. He did a terrific job. He succeeded where others failed. In a short matter of time, he got all the permits, he got all the federal agencies together, and he got the job done. Well done. I also would like to thank Congressman Lundgren's office for their willingness to listen to the problems of ordinary citizens like me. They stepped up and helped in the process, and I'm pretty sure they were very pivotal to solving the problem. Also, Fire Chief Mike Seligio was very, very helpful. And last but not least, the local press, especially Mr. Nick Bautista. I would like to thank him for the willingness to voice the concerns and opinions of the local people. My husband and I, we became citizens a couple of weeks ago, and we learned the Pledge of Allegiance, what says liberty and justice for all. You stood up for that. My congratulations. But I'm also standing here today to urge the Board of Supervisors to oppose the proposal of Fish and Wildlife to expand the existing critical habitat for the California red-legged frog by 4,000 acres. We all learned from the painful experience of my family and your painful experience with us, I'm sorry about that as more federal agencies are involved, as more complicated things become and more expensive, it will stretch the thin resources of this county even thinner. Today's landowners consider themselves stewards of the land. We are willing and eager to protect what nature has given to us. We maybe need some informal guidance how to protect and what not to do. But what we don't need is more bureaucracy. from the federal agencies who expend their influence just for their self-preservance. Give us ranchers and farmers more credit and treat us as equal partners and responsible members of the agricultural community. Again, thank you very much for all you did for us.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations.
Morning. My name's Frank Ginger, and I want to know what you guys are going to do about the handicap parking. You can't believe they're even parking those buses in the handicap parking. That's against the law. But I've left them alone, but no longer am I going to leave them alone. I'm going over there at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, and I'm going to take pictures, and I'm going to call the chief of police of Angels Camp told me to call him. He will either come out here and either tow the bus away or give them a $375 ticket. I'd like for you to see these because I don't believe them myself. But you know what? They even park in the middle. Where people have in the walkways, they do it on Saturdays. It's all bull. That old lady is 80 years old. She told me she's parked cockeyed. I told her, what's wrong? She tells me because the bus is there, she can't even park in the handicapped parking. And sometimes there's 3 buses there, and I didn't look until the other day. They're blocking 6 more parking, but they're not handicapped. But they see my orange truck, and believe me when I tell you, they know that they got to move when it comes to me because you don't like the language I use for them. But they're idiots. There's no reason for that. But I go there every day, and I park in a handicapped parking because I'm handicapped. And when they get in my way, I welded a 1-ton bumper on my truck. And I ain't going to mess with them no more. And I told that to the captain. So it's whatever we're going to do, let's do it, because I went to Public Works, I went to everybody you told me to go to, and they all denied me. Well, as you know, being here before, I'm not that easy to push off. So we can do it one way or another. But the one thing I was also wondering is what about West Point, that couple that's got that illegal dump that the county put there. It's still there. They're still getting sick. And wherever he's at, the gentleman for mental health that was in here, he's already come here and admitted that they put an illegal dump. It's toxic waste that they dumped on that man's property. They just took it over. And yet he asked for $259,000 to clean it up, and nobody cleans it up, and now we're going 2 years, and that man is still getting sick. But if he dies, God have mercy on this county, because they're going to sue and they got the little shoebox. That's what I really love, is all that proof. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ginger.
Good morning, Steve Gafka with Farm Bureau, and also trying to represent cattlemen this morning. I'm sure you guys have seen the Fish and Wildlife Service is going to go ahead and propose designation of 4,500 acres again in the for red-legged frog critical habitat. Farm Bureau and cattlemen would like to ask you guys to submit a letter of opposition to the service, and that they tried it about 3 years ago, and with public comment, I think they dropped that. So I'm here today to give you a letter from both Farm Bureau and cattlemen, and also a draft letter that you can use to submit to the service. October 30th, Farm Bureau is hosting a public meeting with Fish and Wildlife Service here in San Andreas. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Hopefully we get some answers to some of our questions. And formally, I'd like to ask that this be on your agenda, put on the agenda for November 4th for a little bit more discussion. So I'd like to leave these letters with you for today, and thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Carl.
Mr. Lawton, is that possible to get some discussion scheduled for that requested date?
It is.
Possible action.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a little handout.
You're going to get the Nick and Nick show here this morning. My name's Nick Hodson. I am with Bank of Vista in Valley Springs and also a member of the Valley Springs Area Business Association. VSBA was formed in 1983 and became a nonprofit corporation in 1984. They joined together for the mutual benefit of the communities of Valley Springs, Burson, Jenny Lynn Wallace, Rancho Calaveras, and the La Cantera subdivisions. Current membership is about 125 members, with over 110 of these as truly active businesses in the greater Valley Springs area. While a non-political emphasis has been placed on the organization, a committee was formed in January 2008 called the VSABA Visionary Council for the purpose of providing a voice for the business community of the greater Valley Springs area. This committee meets monthly, and we have discussed such things as the local sign ordinance, traffic issues, future landscape ideas, and what we think our downtown area should look like. These ideas, we hope, will enhance pride of ownership and provide a better environment for profitability of our businesses. The committee thought we should come up with a vision statement for the area, and here's Nick Baptista, chairman of the committee, to present an overview of the visionary statement.
Thank you for your time this morning. The visionary statement has what we believe are 5 major parts. We believe the historical downtown core of Valley Springs should be preserved and enhanced. To quote from the visionary statement, with proper planning, we believe a renaissance can occur in the core of Valley Springs to create a historical district, emphasizing our roots as a late 1880s railroad town. We are one of only a handful of communities in the state with their original train depot dating back more than 100 years, and many of the storefronts of that era also exist in our downtown. We also believe that Highway 26 from Vista del Lago to Highway 12 should be the focal point for future commercial development in Valley Springs. In addition, Highway 26 at Hogan Dam Road should be the approximate center of a new business district, with Highway 12 readjusting southward over open land to converge at Highway 26 at the Hogan Dam Road intersection. To quote from the statement, Caltrans would have plenty of open land to construct a cost-effective, modern-day highway network to meet the challenges of the 21st century, instead of trying to shoehorn 2 highways into the middle of a town designed in the 19th century and the accompanying displacement of several businesses. Also, future road plans in the area of Valley Springs should take into consideration wide boulevards, installation of a landscape corridor with Mediterranean-type foliage, such as olive trees, to emphasize our agricultural heritage, a pedestrian-friendly environment, and introduction of a roundabout to give Valley Springs a uniqueness and characteristic found nowhere else in Calaveras County, as also a main point in the visionary statement. In addition, we question whether installation of a traffic signal in downtown Valley Springs will be as helpful as spending the money to build roads to help alleviate the current traffic congestion in the area. We plan to present this as the general plan progresses and let the county and the community also know what we vision for the downtown, eventual future downtown of Valley Springs. Thank you very much for your time.
Nick, I have a quick question, a clarification. You basically say readjusting Highway 12 to converge with Highway 26 at Hogan Dam Road seems a sensible solution. But isn't that what the board just, isn't that the option, that the preferred option that the board just basically, for lack of a better term, wiped out with the approval 2 or 3 weeks ago?
I don't think so. I think that still leaves that area there to be developed. Plus, I think the Calaveras Council of Governments has a number of alternatives for that area, and we would just...
But that was the preferred alternative. And
I don't know if they prefer them not, if they have delineated which ones are the preferable ones at this time.
You probably should check with COG and see what is still... what alternatives are still available.
Yeah, I know that they have about 5 or 6 alternatives that they're looking at. I didn't know if they prioritized them.
Well, that was supposedly the preferred alternative.
And I think
testimony that was given.
Yes, and I think that there's still enough room there for our idea to be implemented. Thank you.
And I'll get it right here sometime.
Would you state your name, please?
I sure will. Put up my presidential seal.
The presidential seal.
I will take them off. My name's Terry Baker, and I'm from Railroad Flat, and we have a big rooster problem out in Railroad Flat. I've been here, this is my 4th opportunity to try to do something about this, and basically, you know, we're kind of fed up about the whole thing. Anyway, I'd like to start, I'm here today to give the supervisors and the people of Calaveras County an update on the ongoing noise pollution problem in the case of the people of California versus David and Carolyn Redmond on Black Oak Drive in Railroad Flat. Now, as you supervisors already know, the Redmonds have taken over our once quiet subdivision and have turned it into a noise-polluted cesspool. Now, the first time the state took them to court, they were found guilty, and they were fined $350, and they were warned to not do it again, and the second time, they would be fined $850, and on and on and on. Well, we went to court, they were found guilty, and they refused the judge's orders to do anything about the birds. Not only did they refuse, but they doubled the amount of birds. They went from 30 from the time we went to court to 75 from the time we went to court the second time. Now, the second time, the judge found him not guilty. And nobody that I have talked to, Ken Churches, Mary Mutz, Gina Catherine, Steve Walensky, Jeffrey Tuttle, who I spoke with for about a half hour yesterday, couldn't understand why they were found not guilty. Well, now I know, okay? It only took me, a couple $100 and 3 months of my time to find out why. And I'm going to show you.
Mr. Baker, I want to remind you that you're about 2.5 minutes into a 5-minute presentation. So.
I'll make sure I don't go over it. 2.5? Got it. And if I do go over it, I'll be back next week to make up the next 30 seconds.
That'll be fine, but we're...
Now, the thing that I would like to go over, I'm going to speed it up now, is we went to court the first time and they said we were zoned unspecified or unclassified. Well, that was wrong. We're zoned RA, which stands for Residential Ag. And Stephanie Morano came up here and even explained it to you that there was a mistake and that it was wrong and we're going to go back and do it again. Well, you'd be surprised to find out the second time we went to court, they got it wrong even worse. They didn't even come up with a zoning that was even real. There is no rural agriculture. I just talked to Gina Catherine before I came here. She says there isn't one. Well, if the county wants to go to court over and over again until they can get what the zoning is so we can straighten this thing out. It's been 2 years of my time and our effort. Well, let me just, this is Steve Walensky's words. An enormous amount of county time has been spent on this. Well, my question is, how much more county time are we going to waste on this until we get it right? Because this is the noise nuisance ordinance. We already talked to county council. We were under the impression there was going to be another nuisance noise ordinance coming in. And that was supposed to be 6 to 8 weeks from the time we were here, that one meeting, I believe it was in June. And then a lot of stuff happened. Some people quit, whatever. And then we were told to wait till the middle of August. Well, we're at the middle of August, and I'm just here curious how's that thing going?
If you'll come back this afternoon, we're having a study session on the rental issues in the county, and I'm certain that there will be additional discussion on the noise nuisance aspects of that. And we are dangerously close. Is your timer running? I think we're out of time.
Well, go ahead and finish. I got time.
No, I'm done.
I don't want to cut you off.
No, I'm merely pointing out to you, you asked me the question is when are we going to talk about the nuisance and noise ordinance, and I think we're going to be talking about that this afternoon.
Okay, so I guess my time's up. I'll be back next week. Here, I would also like you guys to have. Before I go, I would like to introduce to you our new unofficial Calaveras mascot.
Okay.
This is Rudolph the Redmond Rooster.
Wow.
Okay? And you're going to see a lot of this guy. You're going to see him all over. He's going to overshadow our Calaveras Fall pretty soon by people knowing who Rudolph the Redmond Rooster is. So that I would like to just kick off our advertising campaign while I'm here with you guys today, just to let you get through the first of it.
Sir, one quick question. What is WWJD?
That's a secret.
Okay.
If my time's up, I'm going to let people figure that one out for themselves. It's something that, you might have to think about it, but a lot of people know exactly what we're talking about.
Okay, we have other public comments.
Good morning. I am Lisa Mayo with the Calaveras Visitors Bureau and Film Commission, and I'm just here to give you a quick update on some of the projects that we are working on and what is happening in tourism in Calaveras County. A lot of people have been asking me about the economy and gas prices and all that good stuff, and how that's affecting us. And we actually haven't seen a real downturn in tourism, and that's the really good news here in Calaveras. Part of that, the Visitors Bureau, we took a proactive approach to our marketing efforts and did some more localized marketing in the Sacramento area, the Central Valley, and we continue to do that. And so we're seeing a lot of folks from those areas come up here. We're also seeing a lot of international travelers. Our American dollar is very, very weak compared to international dollars, and so they're coming over here and they're getting a bargain when they come here. And a lot of them are coming inland. They've already done a lot of the coast, the Disneyland, that type of thing. People want more of a hands-on experience when they travel these days. So Calaveras County, our whole Gold Country, High Sierra is a great opportunity for those people to get those experiences. We are also continually partnering with the California Travel and Tourism Commission. They provide us with really wonderful opportunities to meet media one-on-one. It's ways that we can take our dollars and spread them way out and make them go a lot further. So we partner with them on a lot of different activities. The media events that we've been able to participate with them on, we've seen a lot of travel media here from those, including people from Frommer's Budget Travel, as well as other travel guides. The Northern California Guidebook, Sacramento Bee was here recently and did a couple huge articles. Hopefully you saw those. We are also, as part of the California Travel and Tourism Commission, we are in both the Gold Country region and the High Sierra region. And the High Sierra region has asked me this year to represent them in Germany at the International Tourism Show there. And so I will be going at their expense, it will not come out of the Calaveras Visitors Bureau budget, to represent Calaveras County and the High Sierra. We have an ongoing press release program we do on a weekly basis, just updating all kinds of media about what's going on here, and it's really great because we often get at least a couple people calling us saying, hey, what's this certain one about? We try to entice them to give us a call. In fact, recently we had Fox 40 News call, and it was about Lumberjack Day in West Point, and they wanted to come and do a series on wood choppers. And so we thought that was really interesting. Our current projects, we are working on the 2009 activities guide. I can't believe that we're already working on that and that it's almost 2009, but it's right around the corner. We are also rolling out a new website soon that will be a lot more technologically savvy, if you will. We will have RSS feeds, we'll have video embedding on there, and we are also working on a reservation system. To have a reservation system for hotel bookings on our site, we really need the cooperation of our hotel members, because they will have to do some work on that as well. And so that we are hopefully going to have. We are also really pushing the tour bus business. We've been working really hard for about 3 years now, trying to get more and more tour groups here. And it takes about 3 years to get these relationships going and get people recognizing us, and they are doing that now. We are attending a Group Leaders of America chapter meeting this week, where we'll be able to meet with group tour leaders from a number of different groups. We are attending the National Tour Association. We're also attending the American Bus Association Convention and Marketplace, and the Go West Summit, which focuses on Western states and their tourism or tour leaders. We continue to do our travel and trade shows. We find that those are a great spot for us to sell Calaveras County. Those include the Bay Area Travel Show, the LA Times Travel Show, and this year we will, 2009, we will once again be at Sunset Celebrations down in Menlo Park at Sunset headquarters. We also continue to do our radio show, What's Happening in Calaveras County. I have yet to get all the supervisors on there, so I'll be calling you to have you come on the show and be part of our Faces and Places segment. We recently had a really great series of Discover Calaveras events where we went to the local bed and breakfast and historic hotels. And this is a way for us to get our residents out, seeing what's behind the doors of our great tourism establishments here. And our next one, we are thinking about doing Discover Calaveras Farms. So that would be a lot of fun. We just attended a conference where we learned a lot of things that are going on in the tourism industry that we are not haven't quite caught on board just yet with, but we are working on. One of those is something that Supervisor Callaway and I have talked about, and that is ecotourism and sustainable tourism. And it would be a fairly simple thing for Calaveras County to create an ecotourism guide, and so we are working on doing that as well. And we, again, getting involved with technology is the key. We just put our first video on YouTube yesterday, so there's Calaveras video that the Visitors Bureau did. There's many Calaveras videos on there. I was really surprised at how many, but we'll be adding to that on a regular basis. We're getting more involved in the social media, which is a whole new world for me. I hate to admit it, but I'm learning a lot about Facebook and YouTube and just all these things that are out there where we can really network and get our name out there a lot quicker. We just recently got these nice little commuter mugs in, so I brought one for each of you, the Go Green, just going along with that ecotourism theme. So you each have one of those for you. And I just really want to thank the Board of Supervisors for your continued support of tourism and realizing that it is a vital part of our economy here, and it is thriving in spite of the news that's out there about our economy. So I really appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Lisa, what's the date that you'll be going to Germany?
That is in early March.
Have a good time.
Thank you.
Do we have any other public comments?
I have one. If the public
Yes.
doesn't. In this morning's record, Calaveras County puts millionaires' cash to good use. And Jeannie Boyce is in the back of the room. Staff always sits in the back. Calaveras County received $451,000 in 06-07. If you remember, this was money for mental health services. We anticipated we'd be able to provide service to 220 clients. The actual number we had in 2007 was 746. So Jeannie's mental health department under Rita Downs really deserves a lot of kudos. And if you have the opportunity when they have their open house, which they have several times during the year, it's a drop-in. It's well worth going and talking to staff and meeting some of the clients. So Jeannie, congratulations on this. It was a really good article and well-deserved. It's nice to see. Well, Calaveras County puts millions, and I just stopped there and thought, oh my gosh, we got money. But thank you.
Okay, one last call for public comments. Seeing none, let's go to agenda item 7. This is a discussion and possible action regarding a minute order approving a budget cover for the fiscal year 2008-2009. This is one of the highlights of our year, so welcome, Linda.
Good morning. While the computer's booting up here, several years ago we started doing a slide presentation because we have 29 submissions this year, and some of them are extremely creative.
30.
And
What about this one?
quiet, please.
Yeah, I think we should just all have it now, and we'll go with this. Let's go with this.
I think the deadline is passed.
Yeah, it's passed.
Oh, shoot.
Maybe next year.
Could we?
Select this.
Okay, ready?
Do we have an applause meter for this or what?
No. I thought this was pretty creative. Quite a few aerial shots this year. Some of these, it's hard to tell the brightness, because you can really see the persimmons in the pictures, the orange. Another creative one.
Way over on.
On Highway 4 on your way to Bear Valley.
Where?
On Highway 4 as you're going to Bear Valley. It's a little brighter now. It was a little harder to spot before they repainted it.
Would you have any favors? Would you like to see a couple of them again? Repeats?
Okay, were any of the members of the board frantically writing down names?
Yes, I was.
Okay, Marita, what are your favorites?
I'd like to do Murphy's Jail because I think it's symbolic of all the work that's been done on Measure J and where we're going on the jail in the next 2 years. And it's like where we are now, and we're going to see a transition to where we'll be in a couple of years. So my first choice was Murphy's Jail.
Do you have a second choice?
Well Rock, Highway 4.
Do you have a third choice?
It's probably Lake Tulloch, Slide 1.
Okay, I think that probably in the interest of time, we should limit it to this 3 choices per supervisor and see if we have a crossover. Okay,
Well, I don't have any of those, but I liked, I think it was, I don't know if it was the first or the second barn shot.
Not that one?
And,
The Frico City Barn?
yeah, that one.
The one that's really on top of Road? Not that one?
No,
That
that
one.
one, yeah.
Haven't we done a barn before?
A red barn?
Yeah.
The county's barn, yeah. Anyway, that and
About 4 years
that
ago.
creek on Sheep Ranch Road, either one of those shots. And I liked the shot of Table Mountain as well.
Which one?
Well, there's only one, I think.
No,
There were
there
two.
were two.
Okay, let me see. No, that one.
Yeah. Okay, Supervisor Tryon, do you have your top 3?
Well, my first 2 choices would be the 2 of the schoolhouse at Salt Springs Valley. My third choice would be the first barn that was shown.
The Frico City Barn
No, the first
No,
one.
the first
at
one.
the DD.
The one that's got, like more fall scene.
For the windmill.
Is there Salt Spring?
That Salt Springs one that shows the wispy clouds, this doesn't do it justice. It's absolutely striking with the pink shooting through the clouds, going off in 2 gray streaks. It's really gorgeous.
That one, yeah.
So that's what, like 17?
Yeah, and this one is, the colors are really vivid. For some reason, the slideshow doesn't do any of these pictures justice, but this is absolutely a striking photo.
Yeah, that one's got 2 votes.
That's got 2 votes. Okay.
Where's that barn located?
Salt Spring Valley, below,
Is that below?
used to call it the Coon Place. There's a house right to the left of the windmill.
That's pretty
I got to be
remarkable.
from Salt Springs Valley, huh?
Okay, I'd like to list my preferences would be also the second shot of the Salt Springs School. Salt Spring School.
One with the clouds.
No, that was the other one.
You like the green one?
Yeah.
I like that.
The interesting thing about this is, I don't know how many people realize this, but the figure in the lower middle part of the photograph, that's the person taking the picture. His airplane is a 2.5-pound airplane. Has a camera on the left, pointing down the left wing, so he flies it around. He can tell where the left wing is pointing, and he can trip the shutter when it's pointing in the right direction. So it's kind of remarkable that he took his own photograph from probably 300 or 400 feet high. Anyway, that would be my number 1. The Table Mountain, the second one would be my second choice. And my, yeah, that one, and then the third choice would be that barn that both Tom and Bill agreed on. So do we want to, so far we've got 3 votes for the barn. Anybody want to reconsider their positions?
Oh, I'd rather go with the Salt Springs School.
That's fine, that was my first choice, so I like the Salt Springs School.
Okay, then, do I understand that, well, let me, I'm in favor of selecting that as well, but Marita, the Salt Springs School is your first choice, or?
By default.
Yeah. Well, it is a 5th district, so.
I'm not going by district. The Murphy's Jail is not in my district. I just thought it was very symbolic. Huh?
Supervisor Claudino, are you?
That's fine.
You like that one?
That's fine.
Mr. Tran?
Salt Springs.
Okay, so
Good.
4-0, thank you.
By
Good.
district.
And, you know, on the back of the cover, we put a little story from the photographer on what they were doing or thinking when they captured that. So that will be an interesting story.
I like that one.
I do too.
That's it. That one's a wrap.
That's team.
Thank
Does
you.
does that mean we're going to the dogs, or what?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda. That was nicely done, and I'm very pleased with the selection.
How's my, what I'm trying to do with all these? Where are we on that?
And I don't know what you're trying to do. I know
Get a copy of all of them? I'm
Right,
been
and
working
then-
with Madeline in your office.
Yeah, I knew you were looking for those. Were you going to put them down the hallway in the building or
Uh-huh.
something? Okay.
You know, I
I
wanted
noticed.
one, you know, maybe with the year and the artist is fine, or location. I just think they're wonderful. It was a great idea you had.
Well, I think they've been having the problems with time to go back to when we first started, because the last few we have easily accessible. So as soon as they get time, they're going to go back and look. So
Okay, thank
we'll try
you.
to get those.
Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda. This is item number 8, discussion and possible action adopting a resolution authorizing the board chair to sign a memorandum of understanding with the San Andreas Sanitary District to commence negotiations regarding sanitary sewer service to the Calaveras Criminal Justice Center, and adopting a resolution authorizing the CAO to sign an application to the San Andreas Sanitary District. This is brought to us by the County Council's office, and it will require board action.
Good morning, Janice Elliott from County Council's office. This is a two-step action that I'm requesting. I do want to note that there was an error in the resolution authorizing the application to the San Andreas Sanitary District at the end. The numbers were off in that we had the full amount rather than the split of the two different amounts, so we revised that resolution. I'll just read it into the record. It now says, be it further resolved that funding in the amount of $674,250 rather than the full amount of about $891,000 be made, etc. Nothing else was changed, just that particular number. And the staff memo covers pretty much everything, so if you have any questions, I can answer them, or Jim Heminger is here, who's the technical man on this, if you have any questions.
Okay, I'd like to see if any board members would like to ask questions about this staff report or this item. No questions? Well,
I'm really glad. I mean, we keep moving forward. I think that's positive, and I guess we have Mr. Heminger to thank for moving us in this direction.
Right, and if you authorize these actions, then he will be in charge of the next steps, which is basically to start negotiating directly with the sanitary district and start the annexation procedure.
Is there a schedule, a time schedule, Janice or Jim? When will these negotiations begin?
I'm going to have to bring the MOU.
Can you come? Oh, and let let me say one more thing. I apologize. The sanitary district took action at their last meeting, and they did approve the language of the MOU. So they've already approved it.
And that, negotiations will start immediately, actually. I assume by next week I'll have a meeting with the general manager of the sanitary district, and we'll kick this off and start working on it and see what we can come up with. Great.
Mr. Heminger, I have one just kind of an informational question here. The sanitary district, I've learned for the last several years, they use a figure of 280 gallons per day per household. Virtually all of the other districts that are doing the identical work use a fairly significantly lesser amount. If in the midst of all this stuff, if the sanitary district were to decide that their figures are too high, would that reflect in reduced cost to us?
It wouldn't change the actual cost. It would increase the number of EDUs, if you would, for the facilities,
okay.
Because it'd be less gallons per EDU. But hopefully with the reduction in the gallonage per EDU would also result in a proportional decrease in the unit costs. So I anticipate for the jail project or for the courthouse, it would not have a direct impact. But as far as the capacity of the plant to accommodate other development and other users, reducing the 280 to something closer to 195 or 200 would open up capacity. The MOU does include a provision that the district is willing to reconsider aspects of their wastewater facilities master plan, and it's within that master plan where the 280 gallons per day is specified. So we will be talking to the district about that number, and they've indicated willingness to certainly reconsider and relook at it.
Okay. And then my final question has to do with this this verbiage here that talks about also a collection system buy-in fee of up to $5,000 per EDU may be required. So that would essentially take us from $15,500 to $20,500. What is the likelihood that might happen?
I think the 5,000 per EDU is high, but it's going to require some analysis by the sanitary district to see what the prorated cost is into the existing sewer system. We don't know at this point how much it will be. It will be additive to the 15,000, but we don't know how much at this point.
Okay, so it's accurate to say then that although we are considering approving this resolution that limits it to $15,500, there is the expectation that it could be more. Is that?
There's likely, in addition to the hookup fee, will be a charge for a buy-in into the sewer system. This action is to authorize us to do the application.
I see.
And those discussions will be forthcoming from the application negotiations.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other members of the board have any questions? Okay, since this is a public hearing, are there any questions from the members of the audience? Okay, if not, I'd like to close the public hearing and bring it back for further discussion or a vote.
I move both resolutions.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to move both resolutions as modified. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries on a 4-0, 1 absent. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 9, public hearing and possible board action regarding the resolution of establishing an agricultural preserve and a resolution entering into a California land conservation contract number 307 for Alan W. Cathan and Stephen V. Cathan. The subject property location is bordered by Churchill Road and Pool Station Road, and this is brought to us by the Department of Agriculture and requires a board action.
Good morning, Mary Mutz, Agricultural Commissioner. Alan and Stephen Cathan wish to establish an agricultural preserve and enter into a California land conservation contract with their land. They own approximately 105 acres here in San Andreas. It's bordered by Pool Station Road, Churchill Road, and the residences that are on Sunset. They lease the land to John Tiscornia as part of his cattle operation. Mr. Tiscornia uses this pasture for various aspects of his cattle operation, and the heifers from this pasture yield $7,000 to $9,000 annually. The Ag Advisory Committee met on September 9th and recommended that the board establish an agricultural preserve and enter into contract with Alan and Stephen Cathan. Therefore, staff is seeking approval of a resolution establishing an ag preserve for the Cathans and a resolution approving California Land Conservation Contract number 307 with the Cathans. Mr. Tiscornia is here in the audience if you have any questions regarding his cattle operation and the use of this pasture, and I am here to handle any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mary. Any questions from the board? Any questions from the audience? If not, I'll close the public hearing and request further discussion or a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve this contract number 307.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? So that passes on a 4-0-1. Congratulations. I just wanted to mention that this is, in my mind, a pretty remarkable effective use of the Williamson Act mechanism. You look at the aerial photograph and you see that this place is bounded by an industrial area on the south and residential area on the north and a school over on the west. It's really like the quintessential preservation of ag land. I compliment the applicants and very pleased to vote for this. Thank you. Okay, item number 10, the public hearing and possible action regarding the resolution of establishing an agricultural preserve and a resolution entering into a California land conservation contract number 299 for Fred Nakagawa, trustee of the Nakagawa Family Trust. Subject property is located in Double Springs, or at Double Springs Road and Gillum Road, and this is also brought to us by the Department of Ag.
The Nakagawa Family Trust wishes to establish an ag preserve and enter into a contract with their land. They own approximately 379 acres of land down there in the Valley Springs area. As stated, the property is situated off of Double Springs Road. A little bit of it touches Highway 26, and Gillum Road does run through the property. The Nakagawas have leased the land to Walter Valente, and the production value is stated to be over $11,000. Mr. Nakagawa stated he will be, or he already has purchased some unique breed of cattle. I believe some Japanese type of cattle herd, so that's rather exciting to come to the county. On September 9th, the Ag Advisory Committee met and recommended that the board establish an agricultural preserve and enter into contract with the Nakagawa family. Therefore, staff is seeking approval of a resolution establishing that agricultural preserve for the family and a resolution approving California Land Conservation Contract number 299 for the Nakagawa Family Trust. I'm here to answer any questions, and I believe Mr. Nakagawa is in the audience.
Okay, do we have any questions from the board? Okay, I'll open the public hearing and request questions from the audience. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and ask for action from the board.
Make a motion to approve the resolution establishing this agricultural preserve, number 299.
After a second, I have a question.
Give a second.
She's read second.
I'll second.
Okay.
It's okay, I'll second it,
All right.
and I have a question. Mary, based on the meeting we had yesterday, the average annual gross income, I'm sorry, I didn't do this before, is $11,000. That's current, correct?
That is correct. That is what the Nakagawas have been, that is what Mr. Valenti's production value has been.
Okay, because it says they plan on establishing their own. They made it very clear yesterday, you do not go based on the future. It has to be what is current. So I just wanted to make sure that those are, the 11,000 was current. That's all.
The 11,000 is current. We could ask Mr. Nakagawa
No,
to explain.
I expect you to be telling us the truth. That's all I want to know, because they did make it clear about, you can't say you're going to plant persimmons or
They gave
you're
you too
going
much
to have
information, didn't they?
cattle. Okay, thank you. Call for the question.
Okay, I'd like to call for the question on this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the motion passes on a 4-0-1. And I'd just like to ask Mr. Nakagawa a question. And first of all, congratulations on putting this land into the Williamson Act. And Nakagawa is a fairly unusual name. I graduated from high school with a guy named Cressy Nakagawa. Are you related to Cressy?
No.
Okay, well,
That's it.
I wanted to have an opportunity wanted to say hello, but
Thank you.
anyway, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item 11. This is a discussion and possible action regarding a resolution making findings required by Government Code 66474.4 to approve 2 California land conservation contracts for Gerald Dunn on land consisting of approximately 305 acres and approximately 197 acres regarding property located on Swiss Ranch Road, brought to us by the Department of Ag, and requires board action.
Well, I'm sure this one will be just as simple as the other two. So let's have that attitude.
Don't jinx it, Mary.
In summary, Gerald Dunn wishes to divide 502 acres that are restricted by a contract, and he wants to divide them into 2 parcels of 305 acres approximately and 197 acres approximately. And then when that division is finalized, he has legal descriptions, maps are recorded, he wishes to enter into 2 separate contracts for each of those 2 new parcels. But since the land is restricted by a contract, there's numerous steps that must be completed. One of those first steps is for the board to make certain findings to approve this division. Now, these are called, I have learned, they're called negative findings. This is required by Government Code Section 66474.4. And then Mr. Dunn must also comply with Planning Commission's conditions. In the packet, I'm sure you read the findings for the division and how they were discussed. The board needs to determine that the land is large enough to sustain its agricultural use, which it is, and that the land is not intended for residential development. And both of those are negative findings, or he meets both those findings. It's large enough for ag use and it's not going to be used for residential development. So on September 9th, the Ag Advisory Committee met, discussed the findings, and recommended that the board accept the findings as presented to you in that packet. Mr. Dunn's division went before the Planning Commission on June 19th, 2008. The Planning Commission approved the project, but listed certain conditions that must be met before the final map can be recorded. The Planning Commission requires that each of Mr. Dunn's parcels be approved for individual California land conservation contracts. So once again, on September 9th, the Ag Advisory Committee met and reviewed the application for the 304-acre parcel, and the committee recommends that the board enter into contract with Mr. Dunn as soon as the maps are recorded and the legal description is available. Also, on September 9th, the Ag Advisory Committee reviewed the application for the 197-acre parcel, and they also recommended that the board enter into contract with Mr. Dunn for that parcel. So, what I am seeking is 3 approvals today on behalf of Mr. Dunn. First one, I am requesting the board adopt a resolution making the findings that are required by Government Code Section 66474.4. The second, I am requesting the board pass a motion to be recorded in the minutes which authorizes execution of a California land conservation for Jerry Dunn on the 305-acre parcel. And that will be recorded and executed again before you after all the final maps are recorded and the legal descriptions and APMs are available. And then the third request is for the board to pass a motion to be recorded in the minutes, which authorizes an execution of a contract for Jerry Dunn on the 197-acre parcel. And that will come again before the board when all the maps are finalized. So when all of the final maps are recorded, legal descriptions are recorded, I will return to the board with the appropriate resolutions, the contracts ready for your authorized, notarized signature, and we will get them finalized. Mr. Dunn has already paid his application fee, so he is going through with the 2 contracts. And Jerry is in the audience to answer any questions. Barbara Lewis, Planner 3, is in the audience if you have any questions regarding the Planning Commission's requirements, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
I have a question.
Okay, Supervisor Callaway has a question.
Mary, why is this coming before us at this time versus waiting until the properties are subdivided?
Because the Planning Commission one of the conditions of the Planning Commission is that he has to amend his contracts and enter into 2 new contracts for each parcel. But he cannot enter into new contracts until we have legal descriptions and finalized maps.
Well, that I understood, because that's what we did last week or the week before for one of the contracts you brought before us. But we're stipulating there'll be 2 contracts for 2 parcels that do not exist until the subdivision is complete. So you're going to come back and say, now we have the 2 parcels and we have the 2 contracts. I mean, I understand what the Planning Commission did, but we're approving 2 contracts for something that doesn't exist. Am I missing it?
You're correct. The 2 parcels do not exist at this moment.
So then why we could do it concurrently? I mean, I don't think the board, well, I can't speak for the board. I mean, I don't think we have a problem approving the contracts, but we're approving contracts for something that doesn't exist. And until it exists, why aren't we then approving it even simultaneously when the parcels come to us?
It looks to me like this is just part of the process. In other words, there's sort of a catch-22 here.
I call it what came first, the chicken or the egg.
Correct, and this is part of the process to just break that little logjam of the catch-22 and allow the applicant to move to the next phase of his request to divide this property. Marita's point's well taken and accurate, I believe, but it's this catch-22, and if we are approving these contracts, that is what the Planning Commission is requiring to go forward with the land division. Is that correct?
That is correct. I verify with Deborah that is correct.
I don't know how they can do that.
Mr. Chairman, Robert Selman, Planning Director. This is in essence a tentative approval. We're just trying to make sure that for some reason there was not a holdup when we came to the point of being ready to record a final map or a parcel map and then find there was a problem with the agricultural preserve. So we're just trying to make sure that everything is on track. The final action will be the execution of the actual contracts, and they would presumably be recorded concurrently with the parcel map itself. So this is really a pre-positioning to make sure that there are no unforeseen circumstances that would have to be addressed at the last moment. So
this just says approval, Bob. It doesn't say tentative approval.
I believe the recommendation was that there was an authorization to record when presented. So that would, and unless I'm mistaken, I thought that's what I heard you say. But it's agreeing to the concept of the 2 contracts. Clearly, you can't execute them until the parcels are created, so they would all have to go together.
And what would then be the effective date of the contract?
The date of recording.
Of the parcel splits?
And the contracts together. They would all go together.
They'd all be the same day, Mary? And that's not what we're approving. When we approve these, the contracts are approved, and there's,
Well, again, forgive me, this is
Okay.
Mary's in part, procedurally, they have to go together. They cannot create the parcels without the agreement for the change. They can't do the contracts until the parcels are created. So this is going to be one of those concurrent recording types of situations.
Can I suggest that the board impose one condition on the approval, that being that the parcels be created, and so that the contracts would be approved subject only to that condition?
Okay. Will that work, Mary?
I'm sorry, would you repeat that, please, Jim?
I was just saying that, what I think you were saying, that there be a condition placed on this approval today, the condition being that the parcels are approved.
Correct.
The parcel split.
Yes.
so this cannot be recorded until the parcel split is complete and recorded.
The contract?
The contract.
The contract will not, that's correct. And the date of the contract, I believe it will become effective January 1st, 2010.
In 2 years? I mean, a year and a half?
Yes.
Why the delay
Then
on
why
that?
are we doing this now?
So that he can
So they
complete
can
the
go forward
division.
with his planning issues.
It may take more than 2 years to do that, but I didn't say that.
Okay.
And all of the anniversary dates of contracts are January 1st.
Right, but I assumed that the split was going to be done prior, but, all right, that's fine. So if the split's done prior to January 1 of '09, these contracts still are not effective until January 2010?
That is correct. That is absolutely correct.
If I understood you correctly, though, Mary, that I don't even think that is this on the agenda, Bob, for approval at the Planning Commission prior to January? I mean, I don't want to...
The action of the Planning Commission is past tense. It is already approved. It's a conditional approval.
Ah, okay, all right.
Yeah, this is again, completing some
Okay.
of the steps necessary to record the final map.
Okay, well, I misunderstood. I thought that it had to go back to the Planning Commission after this. But let's, just for clarification, if that's true, if the Planning Commission has done its work, and this can be completed before January of 2009, why would it be necessary to postpone the adoption of the Williamson Act contracts for yet another year?
The final filing date for Williamson Act contracts is July 31st. And Jerry, when did you submit the application to me?
September.
Okay, after the final filing date.
Okay.
Mr. Dunn's land is currently restricted by a contract,
Yeah.
so if you're concerned about, whether or not he gets into the program, he is in the program. So there will be no change, as far as I know, in his
Okay.
use.
That would be similar to what we did a week or two ago when we canceled a contract and rewrote one.
That was when we rescinded for
and-
2 people and re-entered.
Correct.
Correct, but Jerry doesn't have 2 parcels to rescind and re-enter at this time.
I understand, Mary. Thank you.
Okay, any other board questions? Okay, I'd like to open the public hearing, request any questions from the audience. Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and request board action.
I'll move to approve the recommendations of the Ag Commissioner with the modifications suggested by County Council.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded as presented by the Ag Commissioner and revised by County Council. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved on a 401 action. Thank you.
Thank you. In the future, Deborah and I were speaking, we will work on better language in the Planning Commission's conditions so that things can be done clearer. So thank you.
Okay, we're a few minutes past our 10 o'clock board matters. At this time, this item 12, the review of correspondence, reports of various matters of concern. And we start with Supervisor Callaway.
Yesterday, I went to the Williamson Act training that was put on by the Department of Conservation. There were quite a few assessors there from different counties. Members of our Ag Commission were there, and 2 attorneys, one of whom kept saying to questions, go to your county council. So it's a good thing you've had the training too, Jim.
Several times.
Anyway, several times, haven't we all? Yeah, so that was well done. I have a Fish and Game Commission meeting this week, a juvenile justice swearing in on Thursday. Bill said there's something at Senior Center on Saturday.
There is. There's at the Senior Center here in San Andreas,
Right.
there's a chili cook-off and a car show. We're trying to raise funds.
Right, because I have
support
that
the
down. I
kitchen.
did put it down. And on Saturday, we're having the last trail work for the Arnold Rim Trail on Forest Service land. So if anyone would like to participate in helping with our trail clearing, 8:30 at the Forest Service headquarters in Hathaway Pines. That's all. Oh, no, that's not.
Colombo.
One more. One more thing. I did go to Bear Valley Saturday for the discussion on the environmental impact report. It was well done. Most of the issues are not Calaveras oriented, but I do expect that we need to respond to the environmental impact, the EIR on the project, and November 7 is the due date for all comments. Thank you.
Supervisor Claudino.
Are you sure?
No, I'll let Tom talk about Mr. Froggy's right.
On Wednesday, tomorrow, there's in Amador at the Board of Supervisors chambers, there's the Mountain Valley Emergency Medical Services Agency meeting at 10 a.m. And let's see. On Thursday evening, the Historical Society, Calaveras County Historical Society, will have a dinner at the Senior Center here in San Andreas. I believe they have a program that's talking about the anniversary of the San Andreas Volunteer Fire Department, 150th year anniversary or something of that nature. On Friday, there will be a Calaveras Mariposa Community Action Agency. I forget exactly how that is. It's an all-day meeting to allocate funds. That meeting will be held in Colderville, and it'll be all day Friday. On Saturday, as mentioned before, there's a chili cook-off and car show at the Senior Center here in San Andreas, and anybody that's got a chili pot is welcome to fill it up and bring it at 10
You
o'clock.
are representing the Board of Supervisors.
I wasn't supposed to be. Actually, it was an invitation to each and every one of you, but since you guys don't have a chili pot, but anyway, anybody that does is welcome to fill it up and bring it. It's from 10 to 3, 10 o'clock in the morning till 3 in the afternoon on Saturday.
Bill, what was the date of that Historical Society meeting?
The dinner is, it's $18, and it's Thursday, the 23rd, at 6 p.m. at the Senior Center here.
There's a lot of things happening that night.
Yes, there are.
Yeah. Okay, Supervisor Tryon, do you have anything to report?
Marita and I did work the Feeney Park Foundation bike ride on Saturday. It was very successful, in spite of the fact of the menu for lunch. But they had a great turnout, and I think they raised a fair amount of money. Other than that, I have nothing further.
I have to know what they had for lunch, Tom. Was it a vegetarian?
Chicken, of course.
I thought maybe it was vegetarian.
Was that Rudolph in the pot?
Yeah, Rudolph was in the pot.
Okay. I guess it's down to me. I would like to, I neglected to welcome Bill Claudino back. We've missed you, Bill. And
I missed you too.
Where you going?
I'm surprised that you didn't launch into, sort of some travel log or bring a PowerPoint presentation on your trip. I mean, after all, you went to the seat of democracy, Athens, Greece. I mean,
we have a study session scheduled for next week.
Do we? Okay. All right. As far as my activities, I mentioned that we do have a lot of things going on Thursday. I'd like to go to that Historical Society thing, but I will be conducting I'll be auctioning off some scarecrows down at the Copperopolis Town Square on this Thursday evening. So a lot of other things are kind of in the way. And I would like to take this opportunity to mention to the board members that there is looks like a fun event coming up at the fairgrounds on Saturday, November the 15th. If you recall, at a prior meeting this year, I requested that young Zach Toberer and his family come here, that he was the recipient of the World Champion Packers. Well, Zach's dad, Michael, and their family is putting on the Mule Packers Challenge at the fairgrounds on Saturday the 15th. It's a free event, but they'll have world champion Packers and mule and donkey gymkhana. You want to enter that?
No, I don't.
Okay. Team roping, cattle sorting, steer and mule packing, open horse and mule roping, and Calaveras gold mine packing race. So Michael was explaining all these events to me last night. It sounds like a great event. So please come and tell your friends. The other thing, I want to remind the board that there is a meeting at the Frogateria tonight, or this afternoon at 5 o'clock. This effort to kind of brainstorm ways in which the vitality can be brought to the fairgrounds. I think that there will be a lot of interesting ideas discussed there tonight, so try to come there if you can. On correspondence, I just wanted to see if these things, if they caught your attention. We have some business to do apparently here before December of reaffirming or selecting our CSAC representative. That I think should be agendized for an upcoming meeting. This communication came from CSAC saying that their bylaws dictate that we reaffirm our representative so that they can vote. Okay, and another thing that I wanted to draw your attention to is this resolution. Did you see the resolution asserting legal standing that Tuolumne County recently executed? Did you?
Yes.
Did you see that? I think that it might have some merit for us to do the same thing.
Didn't they do that last year? Was it last year they did that?
No, it was earlier this year that they adopted that. It just gives it puts the federal and state agencies on notice that they can't make decisions in our county without having us at the table.
Oh, we're a home rule county.
That's right.
We did that years ago, if I remember.
Okay.
But they could not make land use decisions in this county.
Well, why don't you pass that on
But-
to the rest of county council, let them review that.
I would like to request that.
What we earlier passed and see if we
It was a split vote.
See if it complies with that objective. Okay, that's all that I have to report. CAO Lawton, do you have anything to mention?
Nothing to add. I yield the balance of my time to distinguished counsel.
Distinguished counsel.
I have to disappoint Mr. Lawton. I have nothing to report.
Wow.
That would be a first.
Carol, anything from the clerks?
No, it disappointed me.
Okay, we are going to be attending, many of us. How many folks are going to attend the luncheon? I think we all are. Okay, all of us are going to be going over to the Annual luncheon for the Calaveras County Library at the Black Bart Inn. And we'll be reconvening. Metropolitan Room at the Black Bart Inn, yeah.
Usually they have it at the library.
Yeah.
They changed it.
Okay, and we will be reconvening this afternoon for a study session here in these chambers at 1:30, and the topic will be short-term rentals for the community, brought to us by the Community Development Agency. So the meeting is adjourned until 1:30.
Carol.
Takes a while to warm up.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
I would like to welcome everyone to this afternoon's session. My name is not Steve Walensky. Steve is traveling today, so I'm chairing the meeting. And we're here to discuss the short-term rentals. This is just a study session. I will turn the meeting over to Bob Selman.
Sounds like we still have a locked door problem, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, let's lock it.
Okay. Let me, before I begin this session, let me premise this one thing. We've talked about the noise element, or excuse me, the noise ordinance, which is an issue to go hand in glove with the ultimate adoption of this language relative to short-term rentals, however we deal with it. That ordinance is under preparation. County Council, the Sheriff's Office, our office are all working on drafts, trying to make sure we can coordinate it. That one is a little bit more complex because issues of noise range through quite a number of different sections in our zoning ordinances, and we need to make sure we get them appropriately tied together, and any changes made in one portion of the code, make sure we make them in all the portions of the code where they fit. So our hope is at the end of this session, we'll have guidance from you that will allow us to prepare the actual ordinances that will deal with short-term rentals, however we do that, and then we will bring that and the noise ordinances back to you at the same time so that they are still tied. Council has advised that there is a difference in the way California law now deals with agricultural noise compared to other types of noise that are regulated. So our ordinance that we're talking about right now may not address some of the issues that were raised this morning. That may have to be covered exactly under state law as it's otherwise covered. So that's in the full disclosure category, more so than a warning or a declaration that we're not going to deal with that issue. It is just that agricultural noise apparently is now covered specifically by state law. And if you have questions, Janice is here. Or she was here. I don't know. I guess she made it back in the door. If you have specific questions, I'm sure she can help you either now or later. So our object today, let's see if I can get this to work correctly. This was what I'd like to do is go through these slides briefly and then come back and go through them again, because basically they're a series of questions and opportunities for direction. And as we move through them, as you give us the guidance, we'll make note of it, and then we'll be able to wrap the whole thing back into an ordinance and bring it to you. So, from what we heard back in June of 2008, short-term rentals are not currently regulated in the sense that we don't provide for them in our code. So they are not
They're not addressed, right?
addressed. So that's under our permissive zoning ordinance. If you don't say you can do it, you may not. So this is why we're having this entire discussion. The board was interested in making sure we did address this issue to some degree, and you wanted to keep the process as simple and inexpensive as possible. So the first question is, how do we regulate this? We've got a number of options. One, we can do this by specific zones. We could amend our zoning code to call out short-term rentals and within the zoning ordinance, and then any place the property is appropriately zoned, clearly people would be able to use it under those standards. We could adopt a uniform development standard that would apply to all cases so that anyone who came in would have a known set of rules they would have to operate. The second option under this is basically to require an administrative permit to regulate particular uses. And the advantage of the administrative permit is, first of all, we would adopt a uniform set of standards that would apply in almost all cases. But the administrative permit gives the staff and whoever makes the decision on that permit the ability to tailor the conditions to specific needs. So you don't have to write the most exacting, cover every situation set of ordinances. You cover the basic set of concerns and issues, and then as each case comes up, you have an opportunity to review the specific issues, make sure there's adequate parking. If there are peculiar circumstances that would apply to one situation versus the other, there's the ability to make a judgment and do some specific mitigation for that particular issue. The second option is to regulate by specific area. Now, I have identified 2 areas. It doesn't have to be 2 areas. It could be countywide, okay? It could be 3 areas. It's whatever you want to do. And I use these, and I gave credit to San Bernardino County because they provided the basis for this ordinance because they've had a lot of experience with this type of use, and we're trying not to reinvent the wheel. The advantage of having specific areas is that you can, again, try to tailor your conditions. So if you have snow country type of issues, you could have one set of specific conditions that's covered that way. You could have a second for the valley areas that don't have snow issues, so your ordinances aren't encumbered with lots of language that people clearly say, well, wait a minute, I don't have to worry about snow. I'm at the lake level, for an example. So it's just a way of dealing with it. Again, if we did it by specific area, and perhaps the area is the entire county, you could adopt specific standards. So it's a by right type of permit, but there are specific standards. Or we could take the administrative use permit approach again and do just as we explained earlier. Okay, and this is the credit to San Bernardino. They went through, and I have tried to reduce this to as simple a language. The actual code obviously would have a little bit more depth and all the right numbers and so on. We're going to go through these basic sections here. The purpose is to establish permits and procedures for the maintenance of short-term private home rentals in whatever we define as the area or the approach. I've done it this way as a regional approach just for continuity of an ordinance discussion. Applicability would apply to short-term rentals where they're allowed, and short-term would mean less than 30 days. So that would be clear what we're talking about. Sorry about the size. It's trying to keep it all together. Administrative use permit requirements, if we adopted an administrative use permit, this would be the basics that we would apply. We would say that it is subject to administrative use permits. They happen to have used a biennial review. That can be whatever we think is appropriate. You could go to a 5-year period. You could go to a one-time or an annual or a biennial, and then after that a 5-year review. You have a lot of options, okay? It's just trying to provide the options. We do provide certain exemptions for the types of uses that clearly are intended to be the multiple family or the timeshare type of uses. And again, this is trying only to add basically as a reminder that we don't want to get into an administrative use permit in an area where we have already provided for short-term rentals. We want to be sure that if we have a zoning provision that provides for them, that we don't come back and make them get an administrative use permit. D, the inspections is an important piece. The reality is almost all of these particular issues are site-specific. And in every case, there needs to be a review by a staff member to determine what is unique about this property that needs to be addressed by the code. We need to make sure that there is adequate access, there's adequate parking, what scope, how large the project is going to be. You can really only do that by getting out of the ground, and we want to make sure that it was clear that was going to happen. Again, you have a lot of flexibility in any particulars you want to deal with those. Notification requirements. We wanted to make sure that the surrounding property owners were notified. We wanted to make sure there is a clear information of who is going to be responsible for the operation of these units. It may be a property owner versus a management agency. The terms could be used interchangeably, but we need to make sure that the public knows they have a recourse and how they get there. Again, provide the maximum number of occupants, number of vehicles, and whether or not they allow on-street parking. This is a little problematic because we have the issue of both public and private roads. Clearly, the county does regulate parking on public roads. We don't regulate parking on private roads. So we need to just know what's going on and make sure the public understands what potential impacts could be. Development standards. Clearly, the home has to be designed and meet codes for the kinds of occupancy that are proposed. And depending upon the number of units, or excuse me, number of people, that could change from what the occupancy as a single-family residence might be. We've also got a term, this language is substantially from the San Bernardino ordinance, and the numbers can be varied from this. There's no lock into that. The purpose is to make sure that the amenities that are provided are consistent with the health and safety needs of the community. So you don't necessarily want to have a very large house with a lot of people and no parking, or parking that was based on a minimal amount of bedrooms when the house was designed, and through time, if we've got more occupancy potential than the house provided for in parking initially, we need to be aware of that situation, and it may result in a reduction in the amount of residents that would be allowed in a particular parcel or occupancy, regardless of the number of beds. Different ways of dealing with it. You can do it on square footage. You can do it, obviously, beds. It doesn't take into account things like couches, other sleeping platforms, but no, it's one of the things that you have to look at as what is the future occupancy of this building going to be, and how are we assured that the facilities, not only the parking, but sewage disposal, whatever it is, are adequate for the occupancy that's proposed. Parking, pretty straightforward. I think, whoops, I missed one there. That's their citation, not ours, excuse me. It would be requiring parking, one for each bedroom, which is the same as our current code right now anyway, so we'll clean up the language on that. Paving is always an issue. If the driveway immediately abuts a road, then clearly you would want to see paved driveways. If it is a situation, and it's probably more of a mountain situation, where you might have a driveway away from the main entrance on the roadway leading to a parking area. On a residential, typically we don't require those to be paved. Again, we could talk a little bit about that, how we deal with those kinds of issues on a case-by-case basis. Signage, it's two purposes. One is so the clients who are coming to those are well aware of where they are going, so they don't wander through the neighborhoods aimlessly. And secondly is so that there is a clear ability of emergency services or other people to find those. Even if there's a lot of parking around, you can still find the addresses and so on. Conditions of operation. Pretty straightforward. These would be types of things that would normally make a project work well. It deals with matters of parking capacity, trash disposal requirements, posted notices, so everybody who is a visitor to those areas knows what the rules are. Again, you may have someone renting a house for a group of people, and not everybody sees and signs the rental agreement. Someone is responsible. This is a way of trying to make sure that every person who is using that unit is aware of what the rules are, and again, those are all subject to your discretion. If you think that's overkill, you don't have to have it. If you think we've missed something or something should be modified, we can again go through that and make whatever changes you need. I suppose part of this is to remind people that the facilities are under an entitlement that can go away. If you fail to follow these rules, if you create a garbage problem or a parking problem or ultimately a noise problem, this is an entitlement that can be revoked for appropriate cause. And part of this is to remind the guests that they have an obligation to make this work as well as the county. Property maintenance, we've gone through a number of particular issues. Obviously, we need to have safe and sanitary conditions. Apparently, San Bernardino County has a problem with the cords issue. Now, I don't know whether that needs to be, number one, you'll see it's extension cords run all over the place. I'm not aware that that's particularly been a problem in this county. I have not heard from building or anybody else where it is. It's probably a wise rule, but it may or may not be included as part of your code when you're done. Bedroom windows are operable. I would defer to the building department as to whether that's an actual requirement. Again, it's somewhat different when you have a non-resident occupancy compared to a resident that obviously knows where all the exits are. For safety purposes, that it may be an entirely appropriate issue, and we would certainly verify that one with the building department. Accumulation of trash clearly needs to be controlled. Animal proofed. This, again, was written primarily in the mountainous areas of San Bernardino County. There obviously is a problem with wildlife. I'm sure in Marita's district, to a degree, there is that. We find the little critters are getting to be more and more numerous everywhere, so it's not particularly an excessive requirement.
We charge extra for the animals.
There you go. It could be as simple as a bungee cord or the self-locking handles, just some way of making sure that trash that's put in the trash stays there as opposed to getting spread out all over the site. And really, maintenance of that trash at the end of the weekend is the real answer. If you get it hauled away somehow so that it's not sitting there until midweek where you could have animals and there's no one around, that obviously would solve the problem. We try to cover that with number 5. After the premises are done, we get rid of the trash unless there is a commercial trash automatically provided. Adequate lighting for the main entrance so that the county, so that everybody can find in these facilities. It says adequate, and we also, you'll notice that I did include motion-activated lights, so they don't have to stay on all the time. But clearly, again, when you have visitors, when you have people that aren't used to a particular property, you need to be able to provide a measure of safety both for them as well as anybody else who may be coming to this site in an emergency or other purposes. Snow removal, this is one of those areas that is particular to a mountainous area. If you could either have it as a generic type of a statement, snow removal where appropriate, or delete it if you had multiple areas that you designated for these uses. Call response availability. This is one of the big issues, and it's trying to make sure that there is somebody who is truly responsible and will be available. There is a requirement in this version that there be a 2-hour maximum callback provision. If there's a problem, there needs to be a response within 2 hours, and then the problem needs to be addressed fully within 24 hours. So for the sake of argument, if there's a trash problem, you would call and somebody would know that there is in fact a problem and it would be addressed, and it may be the next day before it actually gets cleaned up if that's the case, but at least you know something is happening and is moving forward. Clearly this doesn't apply to issues of potential violations of the law or something else where the sheriff would come in. That's not what we're talking about. Off-street parking, this is somewhat tailored to our own requirements. No overnight parking on streets will be plowed, or excuse me, when they are to be plowed because of snow removal. That language out of Title 10 is, in the bottom half of that paragraph, actually is the language in our current code. Again, it's informational, but most people wouldn't know that if they're a visitor, so those types of operational rules would again have to be posted as is appropriate. So now, board direction. We get to go back and start the whole thing again, and you can walk me through this, and you can tell me where you want to go, and politely. Let me get this thing set again. And see if I figured out how to do this correctly. Okay, the first real question point, and my feeling is that if we would go through these so the public has an opportunity to see where you're going, and then we can get their input, it would probably be the easiest and best way to do this, is how do we want to do this? And my suggestion, although I did include this, is that we ought to try not to do this by zoning district so much as basically creating a true overlay that covers either all or certain portions of the county. And the reason I say that is I don't think your board wants to get into a case where an individual property owner comes in and says, well, I just bought this parcel and I don't have that overlay. I'm going to go through a zone change to get the overlay, and spend a year and a huge amount of money to determine that, yes, this particular house should be allowed to have that use. Well, and then next week, the neighbor, seeing how that finally worked, says, well, yeah, I think I'll do the same thing and do it all over again. So I would suggest strongly that we take a county-wide or a very large area-wide approach to this ordinance, which basically is this specific area. And again, I gave you these options of mountain versus valley. You can call it whatever you want.
I'd like to make a comment before we proceed.
Okay.
And that is, I've listened to the San Bernardino ordinance. Just about everything in there that's addressed has never been a problem in our county. We're doing this because we have one subdivision, basically, in Copperopolis that has a noise problem, a noise associated with parting and having boats and going out on the lake. I, for one, am not for initiating this at all. It seems to me that when we last met, the board basically, a majority of the board anyway, I don't remember the polling, said that we wanted to look at the noise and nuisance ordinance as a way to address the problem in Copperopolis. And that's not what this does. I mean, you have all kinds of inspections and requirements and the like for a vacation rental system that isn't a problem, in my opinion. And I, for one, don't see any reason to proceed on the avenue to adopt a new ordinance for vacation rentals. And like I said, just about everything up there does not address the only issue we have, which is a noise issue on Lake Tulloch. And if we're going to be talking about a noise ordinance and a nuisance ordinance that was going to have stronger teeth for the sheriff to enforce, then I think we should be doing that and not be doing this. So those are my comments.
Okay. I agree with everything Tom said, with one exception. And you started out with, if it's not allowed, if it's not specified, it's not allowed. And I think we need to clean that up. So if it's not in an R1 or R2 or whatever, then we should make it an allowed use.
I think a vacation rental should just be an allowed use. I don't know, maybe you can come up with a zone it shouldn't, but I can't think of one. And we should strengthen the noise and nuisance ordinance. And to strengthen my position for that is that, we just had the economic and sort of seminar, and Angel's part was branding, and I think part was economics, et cetera. And everybody says that if you want to have a strong tourist industry and you want to have a strong economy based on that, what you need to do is get them to spend the night. If they spend the night, they will spend a lot more money than if they're day trippers. And one of the great ways we have to have people spend the night is the vacation rentals. And so it seems to me that we want to be very encouraging of the vacation rental sort of part of our industry, because certainly on the Highway 4 corridor, maybe not quite so much in Copper, but I would say from Angel's Camp up, including Arnold. Is that on the Highway 4 corridor? That, a significant part of our economic vitality and well-being is based upon vacation rentals and bed and breakfasts and those kinds of activities. And I don't see any reason that we need to put this kind of an overlay on them. So, but I agree with Marita. I think we need to clean up so that somebody can't come in and say, well, you're breaking code. Sure. So your first issue is, I agree with Marita, and I concur with her thoughts, and I don't see why we just basically don't allow them and then work on the nuisance and noise ordinance to make sure they're compatible.
Well, clearly, as I reviewed the notes from the meeting, you did ask for the study session, and as I interpreted those notes, it was you asked for more depth than just that. I have no problem with what you're saying, okay? And it's easy for us to do this. As I looked at different languages for this type of development, clearly one of the things we can do is add under the general provisions, so it would apply not by zoning district but by a land use, that single-family residences are subject to short-term rental. And we can define all of that. So it's a relatively easy change in direction. I have no problem with that. Just making sure that the majority of you want to do it that way.
And that would hold for your R2s and your R3s?
It would. We are talking at this point only single-family residential units. We could say single-family residential and duplex. Because the multiple family are inherently...
Like the condominiums, I know this isn't in our county, but like the condominiums in Bear Valley, they rent those out. I know lots of people that own condominiums in Bear Valley, and they rent them out for, music in Bear Valley or skiing or something. Sure. So, and I don't have a sense that other people are if it's done properly and in good taste, what's the difference if it's Joe or Susan walking through the door or Sam and Jane? I mean, it just needs to be done in a tasteful way. And to the best of my knowledge, until we heard from Copper Cove subdivision, in my 24 years on the board, I have never heard a complaint about a vacation rental or a bed and breakfast or
well, bed and breakfasts are different. But the other question I had, Bob, on homeowners associations, they can say no. I mean, we have one before us within the last month or so, that it was a new one that said in their CC&Rs there will be no short-term rentals. they have that option of doing it for their homeowners.
They would
But
have to
they have
enforce
to
that.
enforce it, we don't.
Right. They would have to enforce that. We would not.
Okay.
Okay,
I
so
mean, that's where it could come into a conflict, saying, well, the county doesn't allow it and we don't allow it, so you can't do it, which is why we need to modify the code.
So we could, just carrying that through, we could,
Hang on one second. Bill, did you want to weigh in on this particular?
You guys are doing a great job. I'll just have this to say. First of all, Tom, you're not right very often, but I think you're right this time.
Bill, you always say that.
Yeah, I know. It's a point well taken for me right at the present moment. I've been gone for 3 weeks. I know you folks missed me a lot, but I've been in several countries in Europe, and I want to tell you something. I didn't spend one night. I didn't pay for any lodging. And what's very popular there, and has been for a long time, and is growing here, is not necessarily rentals, but the house swapping. And I have several friends in several countries that probably will or have expressed interest in exchanging houses with me for a week or two or whatever. And if I'm going to go to France and stay for 2 weeks and have a French family come and stay in my home for 2 weeks, I don't want to get a business license for that. I think that's a pretty benign activity, and they're going to come here and spend money, because I want to tell you right now, their money is worth a lot more than ours. I got the experience right here. So suffice it to say that I agree. And I'll just end it with that.
Okay. I'm in general agreement with everything that I've heard here, except that I heard loud and clear from that one subdivision. It wasn't Copper Cove, it was Poker Flat.
You're right.
But there's a sense of frustration when everything goes as bad as it frequently does. Is there's no accountability. And I mean, it very well may be that you haven't had problems in the past. I'm not so sure that we can have the luxury of saying that it never will happen in the future. So I'm interested in having a mechanism, and I don't want a bureaucracy established. But if there's a problem in Grizzly Ridge and people are making a bunch of noise and it's causing havoc in the neighborhood like it does in Poker Flat, that somebody knows who owns that property and who's taking responsibility for it. So
well, I can only speak for the Evetts Pass Corridor. There have been occasions that I've gotten phone calls and there isn't one property manager that I haven't called that they haven't dealt with the issue, which they probably dealt with the issue before I even called them. And if they are responsible property managers, then it's been taken care of. And if they're not responsible property managers, then you just call the owner of the home and saying how you're doing it is an impact on the community. I mean, we have hundreds of rentals in the Evetts Pass Corridor, and I feel that the property managers have been responsible in addressing the concerns, and if they're not, then you call the property owner. They're dealing drugs, they're making too much noise, they're leaving out the trash. Doesn't matter. We've made lots of changes. We have Evetts Pass disposal in the Arnold area up. We pick up garbage on a different day than they used to pick them up. We have bear-proof garbage containers. We try and educate the people who go into these units, and the property managers also pay the TOT. And it's an industry that is extremely important. And if in a subdivision that there was a problem, my feeling is I'd deal with the subdivision and the property manager and the owner to resolve it, to resolve the issue. I don't think we need all the changes to affect a change. But, I mean, every area is different, as we found out in Copper versus the Evetts Pass area.
okay, well, how then do you suggest that we address the problems that seem to be specifically contained within Poker Flat?
Well, my understanding was the board gave direction to toughen up the noise.
The noise ordinance is part of it.
Nuisance
Actually create
ordinance,
one.
because the
Which
sheriff
I support.
was here, or somebody from the sheriff's department, I forget who it was, and basically said that if we toughened up the ordinance and gave them additional enforcement authority, that they would be able to resolve those issues. And I think that's a better way to resolve it than, what was presented here in an ordinance form.
Well, but if I remember correctly, it was a little bit beyond that. I mean, certainly we said that the new noise and nuisance ordinance would essentially solve the bulk of the problems. But what do I tell the people in Poker Flat that they're very legitimately concerned about the parking? They fill up these cul-de-sacs with 15 cars for 2 houses, and if you had to fight a fire there, you couldn't get it done. What do you do about the fact that without any inspections or any requirements for some semblance of efficiency of the sewage disposal system on the shores of Lake Tulloch? I mean, there have been many instances of you have 30, 40 people in a house that plug up the sewage disposal pump and it overflows and goes in the lake. Admittedly, you wouldn't have a water contamination problem if that happened in Blue Lake Springs as bad as it is in Lake Tulloch. And don't misunderstand me, all of you. Again, I want to emphasize, I'm not interested in setting up a bureaucracy, but I am interested in giving some credibility and some action to the people that were here in droves, saying that we have an unworkable situation in that particular subdivision. Help us. Now, just simply continuing the business as usual isn't going to help them. So can you
Yes.
explain how we can help them?
Janice Elliott, County Council. At the board's direction, and there was majority board direction at the last study session to do both of these issues, I did prepare a nuisance noise ordinance, and I also did prepare, I actually prepared this in the form of ordinance. Bob just didn't realize that I'd sent it to him. And I did make changes to that to make it more accommodating to Calaveras County. I made it less restrictive. I just tried to adopt it, and I sent it to Bob. I did circulate the nuisance noise ordinance to the sheriff and the district attorney and to planning. I have received comments only from the sheriff's office. The nuisance noise ordinance is designed to address more than just the rentals at those particular areas. You are correct. This was designed to address a different issue. Before I go into what they are, I would suggest that actually what we do is we bring them both back to you next time when we talk about the nuisance noise ordinance, so you can see exactly what they're designed to do. The nuisance noise ordinance was very difficult to draft because you have to be very conscientious of First Amendment rights. I did gather up many examples of other jurisdictional ordinances. I felt 90% of them are probably illegal. So I spent a lot of time looking throughout the United States for examples of ones that have been litigated. I did find some in California that have been litigated, so what I did is I drafted to both have a subjective standard so that you don't infringe on First Amendment rights, but I also met what the sheriff's concerns were, which is to address a section in to address parties. And it does have an enforcement mechanism in there per the sheriff's request that if they have to come back, they can actually charge the landowner and the people renting it, but it's primarily aimed at the landowner, and it can be aimed at the property management company to actually pay for the costs of the sheriff enforcement. It also goes beyond that and addresses other nuisance noise throughout the county, obviously, because there are other issues that the board wanted addressed. As Bob stated, it will not address agricultural operations because there is state law on that issue. It authorizes counties to have their own ordinances. It's not preemptive, but it does limit the county's ability to address ag operations, and the better place to do that would be to go back and redo our current nuisance noise ordinance. When the nuisance noise ordinance comes back to you, what I did is I spent the majority of my time going through not the zoning code, as Bob stated, but the entire county code. There are references to noise and how it's addressed in almost every single county code. Some of them we've never enforced. Some of them don't really make a whole lot of sense. So what we're going to have to do, if the board wants to adopt a nuisance noise ordinance, is actually change a lot of different areas of our county code so they're all in conformance. We also have a general plan element that addresses noise is being updated, and we need to make sure that whatever we do as an ordinance is going to conform to what we have in the general plan element. Right now, there's not a whole lot there, so it's not a big issue, but they sort of need to go together. So I would suggest that rather than just making a decision on this today, we just bring it back to you together and actually have the sheriff be involved, because the sheriff's the one that has to deal with this more than anybody else, and get their comments on it. They're fine with the nuisance noise ordinance as it is. I don't believe the planning department has actually looked at it and provided any comments yet, but that would be my suggestion, that you just look at them together at the same time, because they do serve certain purposes. This one was designed to, Bob's right, our current code doesn't allow for this use, so the board directed staff to come back with some kind of permitting for this. This is designed to get away from looking at who is in the rental, which is more what the noise ordinance is for, and to get back to how the rental's being used, meaning that in response to some of the complaints Russ was referring to, they had 35 people in a 3-bedroom house, and they may not necessarily be noisy, although the odds are they probably are going to be noisy, and the nuisance noise ordinance will address that. But sometimes there have been too many people in a house. So this ordinance is designed to address how the facility is used rather than who's using the facility. So they do serve different purposes. You don't have to adopt both, but I really do think you should look at them at the same time and have a sheriff here to give you some comments on it.
Is it possible that in the definition of what would constitute a nuisance, that you could write it in such a way that it would be broad enough in latitude that you could say, you know, when rental properties are being rented, that it definitely would be construed as being a nuisance to have 35 people in a 3-bedroom house?
No.
You can't do that.
No, it's solely designed to address the noise from the particular use. The amount of people is more of a zoning issue and how you're using the facility.
Okay, but the noise ordinance is going to fail to do its job if it doesn't address particularly the loud and obnoxious noises that are coming from places like Tulloch.
It will address loud noises. I did not use the term obnoxious for a reason, but it will address noises from the use. So odds are if you have too many people in the facility, you probably are going to have loud noises that will trigger the sheriff's ability to go to the facility and see it. But all I'm saying is, you know, there may be an example where there's 25 quiet people there, and this particular ordinance will not address that issue. It's strictly related to noise. So, and it may be that you want to take that as the first step and see how it works. That's another possibility, that you take a small step, and that's kind of how I drafted the nuisance noise ordinance, as sort of like a baby step. Some of the ordinances that I saw in other counties were just way too complicated for what we need to do. And then if it works, you can come back, or if it doesn't work, you can come back and add to it or detract from it. I just looked at this as we're starting something new, so let's take a baby step and see how it works. And the sheriff is very happy with the nuisance noise ordinance that's drafted. So.
Oh, well, then it's too strict. I have a question. Russ, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Since the code follows the general plan, do we need to complete the general plan noise element before we would change or modify or establish a noise and nuisance?
No, you can establish a noise ordinance that's consistent with the general plan. Now, there are definitions in the general plan that need to be, we need to conform to. All I was mentioning to everyone I sent it to was we have to come back and revisit it if we change things in the general plan.
Okay.
Okay, are there any other comments from board members?
Well, I'm really empathetic with the issue that Russ has, because I know that's caused lots of consternation down there. And maybe people who are in the business would have ideas on how it could be handled. I just don't want to establish something county-wide or region-wide that seems to be subdivision specific.
Okay. Mr. Segala, you have some words of wisdom for us.
Well, hopefully there'll be wisdom. and maybe common sense. Our doctor friends have a slogan that goes like this: above all else, do no harm. We're going into this with the idea that we need to regulate something. One of the options should be no regulation, with one exception that Marita brought up, which is very wise. The existing law almost suggests that the short-term rental may not be authorized under certain zoning classifications. That should be clarified, and I think our planning director has a suggestion for that. Other than that, this issue should be over. The comments that you've made are excellent, and why make a law if you don't need it? As a member of the Taxpayer Association, we appreciate less regulation and less taxes, and one way to get about it is not to make any more. Thank you.
Mr. Segala, were you here the day that we had 30 homeowners from Poker Flat here saying that you've got to do something to help us?
My daddy, when I was a little boy, told me, he said, Abbott, that's the way they talk back in New York, Abbott, if 1,000 people say a foolish thing, it remains to be a foolish thing. There's a carpenter that went on a cross and was left to the mob to decide. That's called the Pontius Pilate theory. It don't work. You got to, if it doesn't make sense, if it's not truth, you can have 1 million people out here. You got to ignore them. Yeah. It can only go by what's right and what's true. Your conscience. True?
I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you about this later.
After the meeting.
You don't want to argue with that.
Yes. What is your
Bonnie
name?
Kapler, Coldwell Banker, Lake Tulloch. I'd just like to address the 30 angry people from Poker Flat. This very small group of homeowners from Poker Flat brought this issue to the Poker Flat Homeowners Association. It was put to a vote. And the vote of the Homeowners Association was to allow short-term rentals. That's my first point. Second point, when we talk about impact on the lake of our renters, I would like to address the fact that a home that sits empty for 300 days out of 365, and if we're lucky is rented 65 days, has a lot lower impact on our environment than a home that's occupied 365 days by a family of maybe 5 or 6. The issue about fire trucks that can't get where they need to get, that's not an issue of homeowners or rentals or management. That's the police department and the fire department, and I'm sure there are plenty of regulations that say what the roads have to be maintained at or looked at. So I think that we are looking at a very few number of people that are very upset, and some of them are very valid in their objections. But they couldn't get it past their homeowners association, and now they're bringing it to you. So I think that's something that really needs to be considered.
Aaron Stafford, Calaveras County Association of Realtors. Actually, there was just an assembly bill that was one signature away from passing. Actually went through the legislature, actually was up for Schwarzenegger to sign. Didn't sign it. It was called AB 2259, which basically gave any owner that actually owned a home within a subdivision, if that subdivision voted to change their rules regarding short-term rentals, if they owned it prior to the change, they would be able to retain their rights to rent their properties. So this is not something that is just coming out of nowhere. Homeowners associations have been trying to do this to a lot of people and really affecting people's property rights. One restriction that they did put in it was basically that it would require those people that continued to rent to notify the homeowners association of who their property manager was or who to contact in case of emergency or an issue. So that may be something that you just have the homeowners associations register these renters and leave it at that. So.
Thank you for your comments. I agree with the majority, I believe, in your statements. Russ, I was at that study session and absolutely did not count 30 people. You say that there were 30. I heard you use hordes or droves, actually. And that was not the case. I saw clearly less than 10 people, and I saw maybe 20 people who were in favor of no regulation. So I'm just going to directly answer your question. When this issue came, and I completely agree that at the time the sense was, based on the public input, was that good noise regulation made sense. And I agree with that. Prior to seeing this put on the screen today, I was adamantly opposed to regulation. But I've changed my opinion now that I've seen everything on the screen, and I'm vehemently opposed to regulation. This is a case of complete overkill, and all I can tell you is that being a homeowner and being a real estate broker and having a property management company service as part of my company, we believe that I believe to my core that it's an entitlement of the R1 ownership to be able to short-term rent your home. And I totally agree with what Marita was trying to say, is that whether you are living in your home or rent or guests are in your home, or whether paid guests come into your home, the uses, individual uses, human uses of that property is not what zoning ordinances do. And I mean, we would need to advertise for only quiet people to come to Calaveras County and accept their dollars. That's probably not going to be real productive. So these things self-regulate. Homeowners take care of it. Homeowners associations take care of it. Management companies take care of it. The neighbors take care of it. And the level of problems that we have in our area, being Arnold, are handled by all those people in cooperation. And certainly the problems that were brought to you from Poker Flat could be handled by a good noise ordinance. Thank you very much.
Mr. Shin, can you identify yourself for the...
I'm sorry. Doug Shin, Cedar Creek Realty, Arnold. Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to get that on the record so those 30 people could call you. So.
That was good.
Good afternoon. R. Roberts. I own two homes, one up in Sky High Ranch and one down in Copper. I don't rent out either one of them, but that's not why I'm here. Having experience for the last couple of years working around Poker Flat area, Calypso Bay, being past president of Copper Cove HOA, I have firsthand, many times, seen many issues and talked with the police department, or the sheriff's department, I should say, about the different issues. I would invite the people on this panel that says they see no issues, come ride with me. I invite you, because you need to hear and see firsthand. You need to see how your property is overused and there's no reward or no payback for the use of property. Many of the situations that come in on the short-term rentals, recently in Calypso Bay, in this season, not about a month and a half ago, there was 3 homes that were rented. In those 3 homes that they rented out for the weekend, there was over 90 people. Well, a good portion of that 90 decides to go down to one swimming pool, and the rest of the neighbors can't use their own swimming pool. It's filled. You know, who pays for this? Do those 90 people that rented the place for a short time, you know, are they paying a fair share? There's not a fair equity going here. There needs to be some form of control of how many people are in a house. I definitely do not think the short-term rentals should be ruled out. I think there should be a place for them. It's a way for the county to make money. It's a process that should happen. But we also need enforcement. You don't need rules and regulations unless you have somebody that can sit there and come in and say, look, you know, here's the rules, here's the regulations, and it needs to be done this way. And here's why they are set. You know, I understand realtors like to make money. I understand that they want to rent them out. But while I was working in Blue Lake Springs, a good example is on the weekends after the garbage, you try to call the real estate companies, especially on a 3-day weekend, and you know, during the snow season. Meanwhile, the animals are getting into it, dogs running loose, and garbage is every place. Who's going to pick it up? The next door neighbors don't want to pick up garbage as somebody else. You know, and that's why I say, I hear you sit there and say, I've never heard of a problem. Well, you're hearing it now. But, you know, hearing it is not like seeing it firsthand. And I would really advise, before you sit there and judge on something, you need to get out there and see these different things firsthand. I would like to see something in place, but it needs to have proper enforcement, whether code compliance, whether the permit to rent is controlled beforehand and not afterwards. Who can do it? I think if I was a realtor, I would love to see this control go in. So it would go through a realtor, somebody with something at stake here besides the average homeowner trying to create an underground economy. So you need to look at the full spectrum before you sit there and just judge and say, I don't see a problem. You know, and if the boat ramps at these different places that are on Lake Tulloch, they are overcrowded during the boat season. They get people coming in, and once the gate code gets passed out, you know, 10 people get the gate code. Every realtor has got a copy of every gate code going, and they say, oh, go look at this house, and in they go, you know, and so they give it to their friend. Well, that's also true for the workmen that help build the houses and the contractors. They all have, you know, the access to these different points are overutilized, and there's a real problem. I've seen it sky high where the roads, they're not supposed to be parking in the roads. No matter how much we try to talk to the people up there and the past boards, they would not listen. People, you know, still rent out houses. They park in the roads. They don't park in the parking areas like everybody else. And yet there's no enforcement. We come back to enforcement again. You know, and who's accountable? And who should be held accountable? You know, bottom line, it always comes down to the homeowner and dump it on the board and say the board's supposed to go do it. Well, when half of the realtors are probably on the boards, you know, not much gets done. That's been the past history. Thank you.
Thank you, Art.
Yes.
I'll keep you informed when we have the next session. You can come back and express your opinions again. So.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have a gentleman over here.
With Forest Meadows Vacation Rental. I've managed property, particularly vacation rentals in Forest Meadows for the last 20 years. Forest Meadows is probably one of the more regulated communities in the area and probably has as picky a people or neighbors as one could have. What I've always...
Are you talking about Marita's neighbors?
He's talking about Marita.
What I've tried to do is make myself known in the community if there's a problem with somebody. I get up at midnight and go and quiet people down. The homes are regulated by the amount of beds. It's the amount of people that can fit in them. And it's a 3-bedroom house. It can be, you know, six people basically, 3 couples. If there's a couple of kids that go along with it, they can bed it on the couch. But we really don't usually have a problem with 30 or 40 people. That's a tremendous amount of people to have in any kind of house. You know, it's just really got to be brought to the attention of the management company, and it's their responsibility to take care of it. Other than that, I just would hate to see a bunch of regulations brought on that would just have to be policed by somebody else, you know. So if we can take care of our own business, that would probably be better.
Thank you, Dwayne. Anybody else wishing to? Here we go.
Lloyd Griffin. Since I wore my tie, I thought I should say something. Well, the Association of Realtors adopted a position opposing regulation of rentals, whether they're long-term, short-term, or any term. And I think a lot of people here today have expressed, the property management company's effort to self-police and the homeowners association's effort to self-police, and I really think that's where it belongs. And honestly, if you owned a home and you hired a realtor or a property management company to rent it out, you wouldn't want them renting it to 30 or 40 people. You're going to specify. Those things are specified in the rental agreements. They're very closely looked at. Problems down in Lake Tulloch are that they're lakefront properties. They're places to party, places to ski. The bulk of our rentals in this county are not. They're places to sleep when you go skiing or to stay when you go to a music festival or something. So it's not indicative of the entire county. If you want to place special restrictions on the Lake Tulloch area, then I think the supervisor and the people in the Lake Tulloch area should get together and talk about that and not try to impose regulation on everyone in the county because of a couple of isolated properties that have had some controversy. And that's basically all I have to add. Thank you.
The Board of Realtors would support making modifications to the code, though, to make it a permitted use. In the R1, for example, or R2, because it's not a permitted use now.
I believe it's an entitlement that's expressed, whether it's written or not. I don't see any harm in clarifying it, but to come out and say, well, you can't rent because it's not printed in our code, I don't think that would hold up. Personally, I think it would be challenged, and I don't think you could do that. It's like saying you can't pick your teeth because, A, it's not in the zoning code.
Well, that's true. You got his boss.
Yeah. But no, Marita, if it makes it
cleaner, I think that's what we're
clearer to everybody, then I think that would be something that's appropriate. And a noise and nuisance ordinance, I mean, that's common sense. If the sheriff says you need changes in it, then I think that's something you look at. Thank you.
Any additional comments? Any concluding comments from the board?
Well, I appreciate what Mr. Selman's done at the direction of the board, but I think the direction of the board has been clarified a little bit differently than when it was when we sent you to the drawing board. All I would like to see is those changes that make it an acceptable, a permitted use. Thank you.
I agree with Marita, but I also agree with County Counsel Janice Elliott that I think this issue should come back to us because we've left it sort of up in the air right now, and we need to take a look at the proposed noise and nuisance ordinance and how it will or will not address some of the problems that we've been discussing here today.
I have no problem with your direction. Just again, as always, I just want to make sure it's clear. What I'm looking at would be then revisions to the code, which we'll bring back to you together with the noise ordinance, clearly. But we would be talking about at this point any dwelling unit and not specify the kind of building that it's in, but a dwelling unit would be eligible for use as short-term rental. We would include a definition that that's less than 30 days. I would ask one question, and I'm going to move forward here just for a second, just to use this as a reminder of what the issues were. If we define it as a permitted use, that's all she wrote as far as I'm concerned, okay? I mean, that's not our problem as long as it is not being used for some other purpose other than as a residential unit. So the question is, are any of these other issues important to you relative to a development standard? You will remember in all of our zoning codes, we have development standards, heights restrictions, setbacks, and so on. So we do you have an issue of wanting to have in this ordinance something that deals with either property notification or surrounding property notification, and you don't have to, I'm just asking, or a management company requirement. Any standards on parking, and that's the only part that's a little bit trickier, because our standards for parking is 2 per dwelling, not per bedroom, it's per dwelling. So we don't have any standards. If you've got a 4-bedroom house and you choose to rent it out to 4 couples, you're going to have presumably 2 parking places. And if you've got a garage, you may have 4 because you could park 2 in the garage. So our codes are silent to that. If that's okay, that's fine. But again, you're talking something that is different than just the normal requirements for a house, which is only 2 parking places.
Are you saying that any residence in the county can only have 2 parking places?
That's all the code requires.
It's a minimum.
It's required, but it's not limited to that.
No, you can build more, but I mean, obviously, if you have a 3-car garage, you inherently have 6 parking places, 3 inside, 3 outside in the driveway. But if you don't have a garage, all we require is 2 parking places.
Right, but the code doesn't prohibit on-street parking.
We don't include on-street parking in our parking standards.
No, I understand that, Bob.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
No, it doesn't, but again, we don't regulate it on all the private roads.
Okay.
With the exception in the winter, we don't.
That's for you, but I'm not talking about snow. But I'm just talking about, generally speaking, the snow parking is addressed specifically, right?
Yeah. Some of our subdivisions have on-street parking, some of them don't. I mean, it just depends on the subdivision. So that's why we always look to parking places that are on the property. Okay. So again, I'm just asking if these are concerns that I can either bring back language to discuss it. If it's not a concern, it's gone as far as I'm concerned.
What,
well,
go ahead, Tom.
Go ahead.
Well, for myself, that's not a concern.
Okay.
The parking, because quite frankly, I mean, you can have a private party and have many people as you like. I mean, I have 3 children. When they all come back for Thanksgiving or Christmas, all 3 drive cars. Denise has a vehicle and I have a vehicle. So we have 5 vehicles, some on the street.
And a driveway that exceeds 16% grade.
I know, but we put blocks under the tires, Maria. And so, you know, and this is the vast majority, you know, don't get rented every night. I mean, usually it's on a weekend, and usually there's a season. You know, usually it's the summer season or it's the winter season, and the like. So if it isn't a nuisance and there isn't noise, I don't think parking becomes a predominant issue. Now, I'm sure there's an exception to that somewhere, but you know, I guess because once you start doing that, then we're just going to start down your list, and
I just
the list
had to
will
ask.
grow and grow. And,
Okay, but let's see if we can have some minimum creation of a list. I heard a couple of people say that, hey, we don't have problems in our area because if we got a 3-bedroom place, that means that there's 6 people and a couple of kids. There is a code in the California resource code or something that says generally the occupancy ratios are 2 people per bedroom plus 1. So, you know, a 2-bedroom house would be permitted under that formula to have five people in it. just let me throw this out, would there be any objection on the part of the realtors that said it's not a problem, we don't have more than 6? Could we limit it somehow to say when these homes in the single-family residential area are subject to being rented, the maximum occupancy shall be umpty-bump?
I'll address that. I think once you start down the slippery slope, it's one after another. Every home in our rental program, the owner identifies what the maximum occupancy is based on the beds and bedroom count of their home, and we enforce that as managers. So it's the owner who leads the charge on that, and rightfully so, because it's their home, and if it's an entitled use, as we believe, then we don't need further regulation to define how many people can sleep in that home or not. I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, frankly, it doesn't, and you were here when those people came, and they have repeated violations. They have a stack of complaints that they've filed against the property management firm. The property manager says that hey, I'm available, call me, and they're calling me instead of him now because he's not responding to calls.
I guess what.
So I mean, if it's not a problem, if they're saying that, hey, we only put 2 people in a bedroom, then what's wrong with just simply saying that for the purposes of this definition or of this new arrangement here, that rental properties are limited to whatever we can mutually agree upon? And if somebody violates that, if they don't, it's a homeowner that flagrantly thumbs his nose at the whole operation, it at least, in my mind, would give the ability of code enforcement then, if it's part of county code, to come in and say, look, you violated this 3 times this year where you put 20 people in this property and you're only supposed to have 6 or 8. So,
I guess I said it clearly that I believe it's an entitlement of the R1 use, and I don't think it needs to be defined any further, and all the filters are in place, all the way from owners, homeowners, management companies, police departments, to handle excessive use, just as in an R1 zone, illegal uses might occur. And those things are handled within the law. And I think that an excessive occupancy would be handled under the noise ordinance. That's what I believe. Thank you.
With your argument, how does that affect if it's the owner with more than the set amount per bedroom?
It would be for just strictly define this, that it would say that we are going to acknowledge that there will be, that properties are available for rent in the R1 zone. However, when they're made available for short-term rental, that the occupancy should be no more than 2 people per bedroom plus 1 kid, or whatever number you want to put in.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be 20. I don't care, but it just that you reach a point where it becomes unworkable and unreasonable when you've got. And I think that in large extent, if you limited the amount of people, that it would be self-regulating on the parking. I mean, it would solve 90% of that problem.
The house, and you can verify this, the cul-de-sac that they're complaining about is one isolated area. It's not generally the whole area. The house, I think specifically, was 451 Lakeview. The 40 people they're talking about was my client and their church group. They didn't receive any complaints the weekend they were there. They had the cars there, and that is a problem. I mean, my office doesn't deal with vacation rentals. We don't want to, but I know Coldwell Banker, they have, and they've actually made their parking lot available for boat trailers and stuff like that to stop with overflow. So I think people have taken certain precautionary measures to try and resolve these issues. And I don't know if they've gotten any worse since we were here last time, but people are trying. And it seems that it will work itself out. It just seems to be an isolated cul-de-sac. And it is a tight cul-de-sac, but those people bought there. I mean, they've been there from the beginning. It's a recreational lake. They used to make noise themselves. And as they get older, they don't want to hear it anymore. Well, move to a retirement community. I mean, it is a recreational area. So.
Well, to answer Bob's question, Mr. Chair, I don't support The only change I support is making it an allowable use, so this issue doesn't come up in the future and any other permutation.
That's the impression I get from the full board, so.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement on that.
Okay. So we'll plan on putting this into code language and bringing it back, and we'll coordinate it with county council and the noise ordinance piece so that you'll have both of those together. And again, as Janice said, these are small steps. If this doesn't solve the problem, we go on to the next level. We'll go from there. Okay?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks to everybody for coming. This concludes this session.
Well, you did. Good job. Yeah.
Dwayne, thank